Planet Ventures is an investment issuer focused on generating free cash to invest in Bitcoin on its treasury. We've got CEO Etienne Moshevich here to outline Planet Ventures opportunities and its strategies to generate these cash flows, invest in Bitcoin, and accretively grow the business. I'm Martin Gago with Market Radius Research. Please remember, this is neither a recommendation nor investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. Etienne, thank you for joining us. How are things going?
Things are going well, Martin. Thank you so much for taking the time to interview us and to interview me. I appreciate it and hear the story.
All right. Yeah, lots of excitement going on here. A lot of share price action in your shares recently. So this seems to be a very good time. Why don't you just start off with giving us a bit of a history, I guess, maybe of yourself and then Planet Ventures and kind of where it started and how you've changed its strategies to where it is today.
Totally. Well, Martin, you and I go back a little while too, because, and I have to say for everybody here, when I used to do just IR for different public companies, you have to set up meetings for the CEOs, and that's very, very important. And Martin was one of the people when he was at Lead that would always take one of my meetings. He would always listen to every story and every company that I brought through. So you always made me look good, Martin. So thank you so much
All
for
right.
that.
Right
So I
on.
got in touch with you kind of when I took over Planet and we started, building the company and doing well. I made sure Planet was in front of you because I wanted it to be on your radar screen. So I really appreciate it. Yeah, a little background on myself. I played tennis all my life. I went to school in the States, Whitman College in Walla Walla, Washington. And then I came back to Vancouver and I got into the business right away. So I was like June of 2011, right after I graduated, and I got into the IR business, and I was doing IR for kind of one mining company. I was kind of in-house IR at the time, and then about a year later, maybe just over a year later, I started my own IR company called Transcend Capital. And I started a newsletter called alphastocks.com at the time. I don't know if you remember it, but and then it was from that I kind of got a lot of exposure to different companies, from biotech companies, tech companies, mining, oil and gas, everything, and kind of built up my contact base, my Rolodex, with retail investors, high net worth individuals, some family office, smaller funds, analysts, bankers, anybody in the business that would look at stuff. And kind of being in the IR space, it gave me exposure, like I said, to all sectors. So I was able to get in touch with, investors that just did biotech and investors that just did mining. So kind of gave me that broad exposure. Um, and then from that, kind of helping companies go public and raising companies' profiles and introducing them to different investors. So that's kind of how I grew my business. Um, and then about 18 months ago, I came across Planet. So Planet, as you said, is an investment issuer. Now, for people that don't understand, an investment issuer is very hard to get, and there aren't too many pure investment issuers in Canada. So what an investment issuer is it gives a public company the leeway and the freedom to invest in any sector without any sort of trading halt or change of business. Because if you have, let's say, a mining company and then you see an incredible tech business that you want to acquire, you have to do a full RTO, change of business. It could take 6 months. With an investment issuer, it could be done right away without a change of business. So it's kind of like a mini Berkshire Hathaway. You can buy any business, you can invest in public companies, you can invest in private companies, you could do anything. And at the time, um, the board of directors at Planet were making numerous investments, and Planet was like around for 15 years before I got involved. And at the time, it had about 3.5 million bucks in cash. And I approached the team and I said, "Look, um, there's a lot of things you can do with an investment issuer, and I want a platform. I see a lot of different companies, I see a lot of different deals, and I want to build a legacy. And I want Planet to be that vehicle that I can use to either, again, acquire different businesses, invest in different businesses. And my number one goal was to increase our assets. That's my number one goal. And so at the time we had about $3.5 million. I said, look, let me come in, let me write a check, let me buy my position and become CEO and and take it over. And again, I didn't have like 10 deals ready to go that I was going to use the money for. I just wanted a platform with where money was there, and then I'll kind of figure it out as time goes on.
Sorry, just to
yeah.
and at that point, did you buy your shares off of existing shareholders, or did
No.
they issue you new shares and your money went into the treasury?
100%. So I was getting to that. So I wrote a check for $1.4 million and I bought 30% of the company at that time.
Yeah.
And since that time, I bought more stock in the market. The company had bought back some shares. So as of right now, I own 35% of the company. And so when I put my money in, the company had we did a $2 million raise at that time. I was 1.4 million of it. And again, I said, let me come CEO, but I will not take $1 of salary, not $1. I do not want $1, no options, nothing. My sole way of making money is to increase the value of my shares and the value of this company. And that's how I'm going to make money. And so at that time, again, we started, now we got $5 million in cash and marketable securities. And since that time, we've generated over the last 18 months or just last year, we generated over $4.8 million in revenue and grew the asset base from 5 million when we started to over 15 million. And that came from a combination of generating revenue as well as some very sound investments that have paid off. And so that's kind of, do you have any questions from that? That's kind of how we started. And the other thing I want to add too is, my whole thing at the time doing this, like we were always trading below net asset value. And that's literally when I called you, Martin, to kind of talk to you about Planet is, we were trading, as you know, below the asset value at that time. And my whole thing was I didn't care really that it was trading below asset value. All that I cared about was that our assets grew. And in my mind was, if I can grow the assets, I start at 5. If I can grow it, then it went to 15. If I can grow it to 30, 45, 50, 100 million one day, I own 35% of the company. We can do a whole dividend to all shareholders. And that is how the actual value will be realized for all shareholders. So the actual kind of stock price I didn't really care about at that time. It was just, making sure the assets grew through sound.
So essentially you're focused on growing your book value per share. Just
that was, yeah,
pushing that
100%. That was the number one goal. Then from that time, we invested in numerous companies, and I can give you examples on some. I can give you one example, like a company called Pluralock. If you want to know some of the companies that we've invested in, like Pluralock, for example. Pluralock, we had, we stick to a lot of these companies. We had, I believe it was like a $250,000 convertible debenture in Pluralock, and it was convertible at 25 cents. And we rode that stock literally from 25 cents down to 2 cents. Great company in the cybersecurity space. But company was undercapitalized at the time, doing great revenue, always needed money. We had a very, very good contact that we did especially well on another deal. And he came in and he announced, we rolled the stock back 10-for-1. We converted our convertible debenture at that time post rollback. And we announced a financing and announced that this was the only money we're going to need for the next year, that we were fully funded for operations for the next 12 months. And we converted our stock to, I believe it was 25 cents around that time, around there. And the stock went to over 250. And so we did very well there. Alpha Cognition, which trades on in the US right now. We started that one we got into that one very, very early on. Now it trades around $10 US. So
I'm a shareholder there.
You're a shareholder. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So we did very well there. We got in initially, I think it was like 19 cent US financing. Obviously, It's been rolled back a few times, but we're still, up a lot, and now they have they raised like 40 million bucks in the US and did very, very well. So again, some investments have done very well. Now, not all investments have obviously panned out. We're in the micro cap space. But our track record is good, and we've grown our assets from 5 million to 15 million. And so from that, I was like, okay, what else can we be doing? And we invested in another company about a year ago that did they needed some money. We invested in them, and then they announced it was a financing was done at about 2.5 cents, came with a full warrant at 5 cents. Then they announced about a year later, they announced that they were getting into um, the Bitcoin Treasury game, and they were going to basically transfer all of their assets that they had into Bitcoin. And their stock, kind of took off, and they did very, very well. And as a capital allocator with Planet, I'm always looking at Bitcoin as to diversify. I just think it's a sound thing to do for any company, regardless of the space that you're in. If you have cash in the bank, it's always good to diversify. And then I'm looking at a lot of these Bitcoin treasury companies in Canada and the US, and I was looking at them, and a lot of them were saying, we got $500,000 in cash. We're going to convert it into Bitcoin. Hopefully the market likes it. Hopefully we can raise more money. And if we're able to raise more money, we'll put it into Bitcoin. And then I'm looking at us, and I'm like, we're trading at 15 million. We have $15 million in assets. I don't have to raise money today to buy Bitcoin. I can use the current cash that I have to buy Bitcoin. And if I use that cash to buy Bitcoin, the market caps that these other companies are getting, because with the current cash, like at 15 million or 16 million at the time, I could technically buy around 100 Bitcoin around there. And I'm like, these guys are trading at like, 8 to 10 times their value of Bitcoin. And so we announced about 3 weeks ago, end of June, that we're going to strategically kind of move and become a into the Bitcoin treasury business. And so far we've invested $4.5 million Canadian into Bitcoin. We got close to 29 Bitcoin right now. In addition to the 28.8, 29 Bitcoin we have today, we have about $11.5 million in cash and marketable securities, which we're currently in the process of selling. And as we sell, we buy more Bitcoin. And that is our business right now. And we continue to have to generate revenue, and that revenue gets then put into Bitcoin. And if you look at, like, I put out a tweet on X yesterday, like, if we can, like, we have 29 Bitcoin today. We're one of the cheapest in a market cap basis, on a valuation base right now, especially when you compare us to the big ones in the US. And if we can allocate and convert the current cash that we have into Bitcoin and have around, let's say, 100 Bitcoin, that would put us as basically the cheapest at a $50 million market cap, or $53 million market cap, where we're trading at today. So I think it's an incredible valuation for anyone looking at getting in today. But then everyone is always asking, what's next? How do you grow that? So I understand you have 29 Bitcoin, you have cash and securities which you're selling off to buy more Bitcoin. What is next? And I think the biggest thing that's going to kind of set ourselves apart is our ability to raise financing accretively to all shareholders. Because remember, unlike many of these other companies where they do a lot of ATM programs, and a lot of the times shareholders, yes, they can raise money if the volume and liquidity is there to buy more Bitcoin. But at the end of the day, shareholders are the ones that lose out on that, because there's constant pressure on the stock. If I'm able to prove to the market that I can raise money accretively to shareholders, because remember, I am the largest shareholder, I own 35%. I want to make sure that any financing that we do is very accretive to all shareholders. So if I'm able to prove that, and and buy more Bitcoin that way, I think that will completely set us apart from everyone else, and prove to the market that we can do it and raise our profile and kind of put us at the top of everyone else.
your business, you are a lot of investment issuers just buy and sell investments and hope to grow it. You generate some cash flow as well from some advisory or consulting business as well to help sort of maintain your self-sufficiency. Do I have that right?
100%. Yeah, we get involved with a number of different companies. And a lot of the times, we charge advisory fees. I've been in the business for a long time. So we advise many different companies in terms of how do they grow their profile and grow their business in all sectors. So, and last year we did very well. And obviously we don't provide any forward guidance or anything, but people can take a look at our financials and we've done very well. And our goal is to turn that revenue into buying more Bitcoin, and that's obviously non-dilutive to shareholders.
So that is, while you're not can't give any guidance on that, advisory businesses tend to be kind of volatile, but that's still part of the strategy that sort of funds the operations, and
100%.
and then excess cash get put into Bitcoin. So internally, you're going to be able to generate cash to turn into Bitcoin, and then I guess the second prong of the strategy is to find accretive financing measures to where accretively add to the balance sheet additional Bitcoin, right?
100%. And that's what's going to set ourselves apart, because a lot of these other companies, they spend the money, they buy Bitcoin, it's one news release, everyone gets excited, and then what? And
Yeah.
my job is to provide that and then what constantly to the market. And that's my job. And that's what I plan to do.
The obvious flagship company in this whole space is MicroStrategy.
Yeah.
And they've gone through, and I don't follow them that closely, but they were doing a bunch of convertible debentures and then pref shares to help fund the addition of Bitcoin. That type of strategy, I'm sure that's crossed your mind. Can you tell us your ability to do that? Is now the time for it, or is that something for the future? Or tell me about those alternative financing means you could potentially go down.
I mean, look, there's a lot of different alternative financing means. The one thing with MicroStrategy is because, they trade, and I don't know what their volume is on a daily basis, but they
Yeah,
trade
it's
huge
ridiculous.
amount of liquidity in the US. You see
Yeah.
Michael Saylor on CNBC and on the biggest podcast he's out there. He is the guy for Bitcoin treasury companies. And that's why they're over and above number one. Now, when you trade so much like that, those alternative financing measures are available to you.
Yeah.
But the one thing so some of those ones are not available, like doing a convertible preferred share financing is probably not available to a lot of micro caps like
Yeah.
myself. However, the biggest thing that he's able to prove is he has the ability, and he's been able to, people, want to buy MicroStrategy because they know, like, if they buy, let's say, one coin for $120,000 US, the way they make money is if Bitcoin doubles and goes to 240, then they've doubled their money. But if they buy MicroStrategy and put 120 grand US into MicroStrategy, if Michael Saylor is going to be able to continue to raise money accretively, then they get leverage on way more than just one Bitcoin. And then that could be, they can be valued at 5 to 10 times going forward basis. So, and my job with Planet is to get out into the US, because if I want to really compete with big US Bitcoin treasury companies, I have to be able to raise 50, 100, 200 million dollars. And the way to do that is getting out to the US. I have, when I say Planet has 300, over 300 followers on X. We just started. Like, we literally just started. And so I'm trying to do as many of these sort of interviews, get out on different podcasts, conferences. I mean, we're 3 weeks old in terms of this strategy in this business. I think we've done fairly okay over the last 3 weeks in terms of, market cap increase and things, but this is just the beginning. Like, we literally just started. It's not even the first inning. And so we're warming up. And there's so many opportunities in this business, especially like the amount of people on X that have reached out to me, and these are investors from all over the world, because Bitcoin is universal. You know, if I was strictly a mining company, not everybody understands mining exploration. Like if you go to some people in the US, like they don't really understand. They haven't been. It's not a big game. Mining exploration is not a big game in the U.S. or sometimes not in Europe. In Canada, that's our business. Bitcoin, however, is universal, and I think giving investors basically a vehicle to leverage Bitcoin is this strategy is only going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
And I think the ones that are valued right and the ones that have shown that they have the ability to generate existing cash flow to buy more Bitcoin and raise financings, but accretive to all shareholders. No point of doing a financing and seeing your stock go down 50%. That's stupid. You want to be able to announce a financing and have your stock go up 50% because of that. That is what my goal is, and that is what I plan to do.
Well, I think what you really, especially these early days, you need to prove that you have those different levers to accretively add to grow that book value per share through various investments or other strategies to drive that up. And then once you, like you're doing big improvement over the last week in the share price, but as you can show that more, you're going to get more leverage and more credibility, and they'll take down the risk whether, oh, can this Etienne guy do this or not?
100%. Like our MNAV, I think is one of the most um, important metrics to value us. And I think like we're able to convert our money, our cash into Bitcoin. Our MNAV is like 3. That's like name me another company in that, a lot of these guys are giving, 10 times earnings, a P ratio of 10. We would be getting 3. That's extremely cheap. And I'm talking today at 26 cents at a $53 million market cap. In my opinion, that's extremely cheap. Now, again, for all your viewers out there and for everybody watching, I'm the CEO and largest shareholder. So I'm obviously very biased, but this is just my opinion. So why would we only be getting a 3 MNAV when other companies are getting a 10 and that's kind of cheap, or 15? We should, in my opinion, we should be getting that, because you got to understand Bitcoin is also early. It's early for Bitcoin. There's only 21 million that's available, that's out right now, and there's no more going to be coming onto the market. And Bitcoin, even at, like Tom Lee was saying on CNBC yesterday, I believe, at $250,000 per Bitcoin, that's only 25% of the gold market. And Bitcoin is digital gold. Like and as the adoption continues to increase, the price of Bitcoin will continue to increase, and every company that holds a large amount of Bitcoin should be getting valued correctly. And I think, in my opinion, a 10 to 15 times multiple on that is normal, based on, especially if they're able to use their current cash flow to buy more Bitcoin and buy more and increase the Bitcoin per share for all shareholders, which I would like to do.
Your Bitcoin treasury, are you going to trade it at all? And
No.
like, oh, it's a little high, we'll blow some off, be cute with it, or you're just buy and hold and stuff it in the treasury?
Buy and hold, baby, Warren Buffett style.
All right. You've mentioned a bit of your sort of perspective on Bitcoin. Obviously, you're all in with this strategy. There's all the usual comments on Bitcoin are out there. I don't know. Is there any other perspective or any area on the Bitcoin that you really focus on that sort of triggered it for you as to why this is going to continue to create a lot of value and grow over the coming years?
You know what? It's the supply.
Yeah.
It's the finite supply. And anytime you have a finite supply, like, JP Morgan just announced that they're looking at potentially giving out loans against people's crypto. Now, Bitcoin is the number one. So the fact that JP Morgan, the biggest bank in the world, is starting to do that, adoption is just starting to increase. You still have companies like JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, and others that think Bitcoin is worthless and is going to zero and don't touch it. But they've come a long way since then. And I think there's so many more companies that are going to start diversifying. If even once it becomes more mainstream and everybody's 60-40 portfolio that every everybody has in their retirement account, their TFSA, RSP, Roth IRA, whatever it may be, starts putting even like 0.5% into Bitcoin, there's no more Bitcoin to buy. It's a finite supply. So all you have to, and I do believe that adoption and demand will continue to increase over time, over years. And that is the biggest thing where you have like, you know, you have, it's the amount of supply being created with our regular currency, the Canadian dollar, the US dollar, is insane, is absolutely insane. The printing machine is nonstop. And no matter what government officials say in Canada or the US or anywhere else in the world that they want to stop it, they're still printing money. So your cash that you have in the bank right now is rotting every single second. And you have the ability, whether you do it through Planet or not, but if you buy Bitcoin, you have the ability to put it into something that's basically an inflation hedge that where the supply is finite. There is no more Bitcoin, none. And I think you have basically certain halving times where, like in 2028 is going to be the next one, where I think there's going to be a huge demand coming in at that time. And I think just as institutional adoption becomes more and more mainstream, as Bitcoin becomes more mainstream with retail investors, I think that's when you're going to see a massive, massive price increase in the price.
Well, that I think that one of the rules of thumb with in the gold market was investors should maybe own a couple of percent, 1 or 2% of gold in your portfolio.
100%.
And just good diversification and just a little piece of the puzzle. And if Bitcoin ever gets to that, I don't know what the math is on that, but the trillions of market value of equities out there, and then put in 1-2% of that, then we get a potentially huge opportunity for Bitcoin there. Bitcoin's obviously the premier one. Are you at all considering the lesser ones, the Ethereums, or the lower down the ladder, the whatever, the lesser ones? No. Or is it just Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin?
Only Bitcoin.
Right.
Nothing else. Bitcoin is the head of it. I don't want to touch any altcoins or other cryptos or anything like that. Bitcoin is the only one.
Etienne, we've covered a lot of territory here. Nothing's jumping to mind as to what else to ask. Is there anything else we should know about you and Planet Ventures, and any final thoughts before we wrap it up here?
Well, look, Martin, I really appreciate you taking the time again to listen to us. And I think the biggest thing to kind of take away is our valuation today. And there aren't many companies with our market caps, with the amount of Bitcoin that we have, with our balance sheet backing us, and our team's ability and my ability to raise money accretively, and using our current cash flow that we get in our company to keep acquiring and stacking our Bitcoin. And so I think that kind of puts us way ahead from everyone else. And I think we're extremely undervalued at these levels.
All right.
So I really hope that your audience and everybody just keeps us on the radar screen, keep watching us. And again, my job is to go and expose this story and talk to everybody. And we've literally just started. We're 3 weeks in. So there's a lot more room to grow.
All right, Etienne. Well, thank you for taking this meeting with me to return the favor on all those prior meetings. So thank you very much. Have a great day, and you'll have to get you back here and get updates as the business progresses and as things evolve. Have a great day.
Looking forward to it, Martin. Thank you so much.
Cheers.